Welcome back. This is a powerful area of chapter 3. Picking up in verse 7 of Matthew in episode 370, we are going to see some scathing remarks, not only from Matthew, but from Jesus himself about this crowd. We're picking up after episode 369. We introduced chapter 3 of Matthew, but now notice with me in verse 7 what is stated in this powerful area of Scripture. Notice what it says. It says, but when he saw many of the Pharisees and the Sadducees coming for baptism, let's put the brakes on for just a second and remind ourselves what's happening here. In context, we know from the last episode in verses 5 and 6, all of Jerusalem was going out to him, all of Judea and the district around the Jordan, and they were being baptized by him in the Jordan River as they confessed their sins. Now, this was a huge, huge deal, because notice what it says here now, in light of what was happening, when he saw many of the Pharisees and the Sadducees coming for baptism. Now, hold on just a second. What do you know about the Pharisees, or what do you know about the Sadducees? Put that there in the comments. This was a huge deal because, first of all, the Pharisees, they knew the Scriptures. They knew the Scriptures by memory. But even though one may know the Scriptures well, they can be of the seed or from the seed of the serpent. We're going to confirm this here. Jesus confirms this for us. So the Pharisees here, just for context, and we'll just use simply Matthew here to begin with, picking up around chapter 23 will give us a good idea. Chapter 23 and 2, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees have seated themselves in the chair of Moses. Therefore, all that they tell you, you do and observe, but do not do according to their deeds, for they say the things that do not do them. They tie heavy burdens and whatever. However, they do all their deeds to be noticed. So where did the deeds derive from? Where was the instruction for the deeds? The instruction for the deeds was in the law. And so we know biblically from context, they knew the law. They knew the law very well. They tithed according to Luke 18 and 12. They fasted. Nine and 14, they were well known for fasting. Then the disciples of John came to him and said, why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? So that question was asked. It was well known that they fasted. Of course, they were, however, self-righteous, and they were certainly hypocritical according to Scriptures as well. And we're kind of building what we're doing here before we move beyond verse 7 here. When it comes to the Pharisees and the Sadducees here, we have to remind ourselves a little bit about them, because Matthew is fixing to present to us what was stated by John the Baptist, but not only John the Baptist, but Jesus himself. And so they are going to be put in a category of the opposition, the seed of the serpent, from Satan himself. But notice, before we do that, in 9 and 3, some of the scribes and said to themselves, this fellow blasphemes. And so we have here again the Pharisees and the scribes. They were attributing Christ's work actually to Satan. Matthew 12 and 24, bear with me, because it's very important to remind ourselves, as you observe people today engaged in what many call religious activity, Don't assume there is a righteous standing or a righteous position there, because even one can engage in religious activity and be from the seed of the serpent. And so this is why we're pointing this out for us to kind of remember today. But here again, when it comes to the Pharisees, when it comes to Christ's work, Matthew 12 and 24, he's going to show as we get to it eventually, but we'll cover it now. The Pharisees heard this and they said, this man cast out demons only by Beelzebul, the ruler of the demons. They literally attributed Christ's work to Satan. This was the Pharisaical crowd here, okay? But what about the Sadducees? What do you know about the Sadducees? What is most known that you are aware about the Sadducees? Well, first of all, they denied bodily resurrection. That is anti-Christian at its finest. One of the fundamentals, elementary fundamentals of our faith is bodily resurrection. The Sadducees, they denied this truth about the bodily resurrection and the existence of angels. Let's confirm this. Confirm this in Acts. As I'm turning to Acts here, what does this remind you of today? Let me know there in the comments. Here again, because one engages in what many call religious activity, doesn't mean, or you cannot assume that person pointedly is saved, okay? And so we have to be very careful with that. There are a lot of people out there that, that are fruit police, that go around and evaluating fruit. We can't get into that as well. But the point is here, in light of what Matthew is doing and what he's revealing to, specifically in this historical context, he was a Jew writing to the Jewish crowds and the recipients to help them understand the Christ, the Messiah, the Genesis 3:15, they rejected him. And so even when they received this gospel account, their mouths would be just fixated on what was being written. And they were, according to the book of Acts, they would be gnashing at their teeth at this. Why? For a plethora of reasons, but we won't cover that. But in large, before moving on through verse 7, here again, about the Sadducees, how do we know that they, what their beliefs were? Acts chapter 2, or 23, excuse me. I'm telling you, man, this is a powerful section of Matthew here. Now that we're setting the stage here contextually, before we move on, what is stated is just phenomenal. Hmm. 23 and 8, let us know. Let me just go back to 7. And as he said this, there occurred a dissension between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the assembly was divided, because the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, nor an angel, nor a spirit. But the Pharisees acknowledge them all. And so we have the Pharisees, they acknowledge all of this. The Sadducees don't. The Pharisees, of course, when it comes to their activities, they're certainly tithing, fasting. They prayed consistently. They knew the law. All of this